bless everyone. I wish you all an abundance of energy, peace, and hearts filled with love. We are here for a 3-day retreat. This is the second day focusing on goodness and leadership, held at An Lac Eco Farm in Kim Boy, Ho Bin. As we know, one of Buddhism's most famous teachings is the Four Noble Truths. These 4 great truths include the truth of suffering, the truth of the cause of suffering, the truth of the end of suffering, and the truth of the path that leads to the end of suffering. The first truth is that suffering is real. Every living being in this life experiences suffering. On the path of building a career, seeking fame, and establishing emotional connections, we have all experienced some degree of suffering. And that is an undeniable truth. This suffering makes us very tired, drains our energy, and prevents us from being happy and fully engaging with life. It keeps us from fully expressing the gifts that nature has bestowed upon us. However, upon enlightenment, the Buddha realized that this suffering is not due to fate. It's not predetermined. No one has destined us to be born to suffer, because one person's suffering is not necessarily another person's suffering, and suffering can be changed. It's not always suffering. The Buddha saw that the cause of suffering does not come from the outside. It's not caused by someone else. The Buddha saw that suffering is within. The truth of suffering, the cause of suffering, is our own greed, hatred, and delusion. That is desire, hatred, and delusion. When we are born as human beings, we have all of these things. And when these things are active, they create suffering. Sages and enlightened beings, like the Buddha, do not believe that circumstances or someone else causes us suffering. If we didn't have greed, hatred, and delusion, no one could cause us suffering. Or if we can control our greed, hatred, and delusion, think carefully. If you believe that someone else is causing you suffering, then why doesn't that person cause the minnyam suffering? Because they minnyam and that person have no needs from each other. If it weren't they minnyam, but someone who doesn't have as deep a connection with that person as you do, you'll see a difference. Because when we have deep connections with each other, we have demands, needs, and expectations of each other. When the other person doesn't meet those expectations, we suffer. But if you and the other person have a deep connection but no demands on each other, or if you accept everything the other person does, then suffering will not arise. And the Buddha declared that people can achieve a state where they no longer suffer. The truth of the end of suffering. The end of suffering. The Buddha was truly skillful in expressing that state as the eradication of afflictions or the end of suffering. That pain later, the Buddha's disciples would call by names more shimmering and mysterious nirvana. But the Buddha only referred to it as the cessation of suffering. And the Buddha also affirmed that there is a path to help us end all suffering. The truth of the path obliges to the end of suffering, and we are walking on that path. If the cause of suffering is the ego, greed, hatred, and delusion, then the path to end suffering is to master the ego and transform the ego, transforming greed, hatred, and delusion. The question is, how can we transform the ego and transform greed, hatred, and delusion? Zen Master Senken was the third patriarch after Bodhidharma in China. He wrote a work called Verses on the Faith Mind. It contains short, unique verses that encapsulate the secrets of practice. The first verse says, "The great way is not difficult. It only avoids picking and choosing. Only when there is no love and hate will everything be understood. Attaining the way isn't difficult. Attaining the way also means ending suffering, or in more flowery terms, realizing nirvana or achieving absolute freedom or attaining great wisdom. According to Zen Master Senken, it's not difficult. The key to practice lies in resolving the issue of no love and hate, which means transcending love and hate. Then you will attain the way. If everything will be understood, meaning the way within you will shine. The question is, how can we as humans not have love and hate? If we're human, we must have love and hate. But the more we love and hate, the more we suffer. Moderate love and hate lead to moderate suffering. Little love and hate lead to little suffering. No love and no hate mean no suffering. So, which package do we choose? So, I want to love a lot, but I don't want to suffer. It's not possible. Because the nature of love is to seek attraction outside oneself, an emotional refuge outside oneself. When we are not conscious of spiritual practice, this is very natural. And it seems that humans are just like that. But if we've lived many years, and we're not just young adults of 18 or 20, looking at love through rose-colored glasses, and we've experienced several relationships and broken many emotional connections and suffered emotionally with our families, then we realize that the nature of everything outside is constantly changing. Do we acknowledge this? There is no emotion that is fixed and exists stably without changing. Change is the nature of all things, which is impermanence. But within this change, there are two directions. One is that it becomes better, which is also a change. The other is that it weakens, which is also a change. So, impermanence doesn't necessarily mean negative. Impermanence in itself doesn't carry a negative or positive meaning. Rather, it encompasses both negative and positive aspects. Impermanence is just a change, and depending on how we nurture the relationship and also depending on the other person, the relationship will either become better each day or weaken each day. But whether it gets better or weaker, when people have a need to be loved, that need is met in a way that's too complete and fulfilling, then people will tend to rely on the object of their affection. The problem, the suffering, starts from there. Just loving isn't the issue. It doesn't necessarily lead to suffering. But love will create consequences. Those consequences are that we become dependent on the other person. We are affected by their ups and downs, their happiness and sadness. Then we are affected by the poison, the wounds, the mistakes, the suffering, the pain that comes from them. And our life becomes tied to their life. So whatever happens to them happens to us. So what should we do when we're still just human beings? We haven't become saints yet. So the Buddha advises that we should learn to love ourselves. Because when we love ourselves first, we'll be less dependent on others. Instead of having the illusion that someone else will make us completely happy, we can now re-establish an understanding that the other person only contributes a portion to our happiness. We have to create our own happiness. It can be said that the path of Buddhist practice is the path for us to reclaim sovereignty in our lives. We return to relying on ourselves. We find strength and faith within ourselves. Because enlightened beings like the Buddha see that people are completely capable of doing that. Maybe when we're deeply in love with someone, or we're being heavily influenced by emotional connections, it's hard for us to think that we can be okay away from that person. And that's something that will probably never happen. But we know that life is inherently impermanent. That person can change at any time, and some major social influences can also affect emotional connections. And at some point, for some reason, something happens that forces us and that person to separate for a while, or maybe separate forever. Then we stagger, we collapse in pain, suffering, and even want to commit suicide. That shows that we've lost our lives. We've placed our lives in the life of that person. We've completely lost control. The story I often tell to the public is about that blind boy. The blind boy holding a lamp. The blind boy went to his friend's house to play. Then, when he was leaving, his friend gave him a lamp. Initially, the blind boy felt sad, thinking his friend was probably teasing him or something, because he's blind. So what's he going to do with a lamp? But his friend said, just hold this lamp up, and people will see you and avoid you. So the boy thought it made sense and happily took the lamp and went home. And when he was going home, he just assumed that everyone would avoid him. So he just held the lamp out in front of him without using his skills to find his way with his other senses like he used to. And as a result, after walking a short distance, someone ran into him and he fell. And the boy angrily shouted, "Hey you, are you blind? Can't you see my lamp?" Then the other person clutched their stomach and laughed. "That lamp of yours went out a long time ago. You idiot!" The boy had the ability to find his way using his own abilities. But when he was given a lamp, a convenience, he should have used both using his skills to find his way and relying on himself, while also having extra support. If only we had the lamp, nothing would have happened. But humans are strange. When someone offers us support, when we have something to hold on to, we forget ourselves. We place all our faith and hope in that object of support. And we call that loving with all our heart and soul, loving with all our sincerity. Now, if you hear someone declare that, you should be wary. They're giving up on their life and handing it over to you. Don't rejoice. That's a weak person, someone who doesn't know how to maintain their autonomy. Loving someone like that won't lead to anything good, because they can't manage their own life. So when you come along, they hand their life over to you. What's so great about that? Look closely. Their life is terrible, full of bruises, scars, and devastation. They may seem resilient on the outside, but inside, it's a mess. That's why in cultivation we see many truths. Seeing so many truths makes us afraid to love. No, when we see many truths, we'll love in a more dignified, self-aware way. Love with awareness. When we love someone, we also remember to love ourselves. And in reality, we must take responsibility for ourselves first. We must lead ourselves, solve our own problems first, and not wait for help, unless we're exhausted and completely out of it. Then we need help. But our brain is very sensitive. Once there's help, it remembers it. And once it remembers, it no longer believes it can heal itself. It's strange like that. If you're in pain and keep taking medicine, your body loses its ability to heal itself. Don't go to the doctor too soon. Use the God-given ability to heal yourself. Whether it's your body or your mind, when a person knows how to cultivate themselves, spending more time developing internally, not less, creating resistance from the body to the mind and soul, that person's ability to heal themselves is very high. But if we spend too much time relying on external support, from material comforts to spiritual comforts, including honor, respect, admiration, and affection, we gradually lose our inner strength or our ability to heal ourselves. In a relationship, there's usually one person leading and one following. In a parent-child relationship, of course the parent leads, or between siblings, the older one leads the younger one. But in a marriage, sometimes the man leads the woman, but sometimes the woman leads the man, depending on the relationship. But in Eastern traditions, it seems the man leads the woman more often. So, when we play the role of a leader, we will lead the relationship in a certain direction. If we're leading our child, what direction do we want to lead them? Do we want our child to become talented, rich, a millionaire in the future? Or do we want our child to have peace and happiness? Because those two things can be different. Success and happiness don't always go together. If parents only want their child to be talented and have a clear career path, to bring honor to the family, we might be pushing our child's life in a different direction. And all the arrangements, suggestions, and support for our child can create a different life for them in our marital relationship. So, where do we want to lead each other? Clearly, in a relationship, one person greatly influences the other. We affect each other. So, One person's poison can become the other's. One person's wound becomes the other's. But conversely, the good seeds in one person can also affect the other. Peaceful energies, a healthy lifestyle, and the qualities of mindful living in one person can transfer to and guide the other. At some point in a romantic relationship, we'll no longer focus on feelings of infatuation. If we live for several decades and we're still seeking those feelings of infatuation, it's a bit tiring. Life is bound to be hard. We should be moving towards higher levels in a relationship. That is, we still love that person, but we want them to have peace and happiness. Because they are the person we love, we can't bear to cause them pain. If we keep providing feelings of infatuation for that person, either they'll become addicted to us and give up their own life. And how can we be sure that we'll be with them forever? 100 years. If we leave their life at some point, say due to some event where we're no longer with them, how will they live? That's the thought of someone with conscience. If we lure them into addiction, it could be immoral until we no longer like them anymore, or for some reason we leave them. They'll fall apart, they'll be hurt, because they've bet their whole life on us. Isn't it? Maybe in our youth, we weren't aware of that. We chose that way. But it's not the best choice. It should only happen in youth. But when we've gone through ups and downs with feelings of infatuation, because infatuation leads to boredom and jealousy, because we're training the other person to develop infatuation. So when we no longer satisfy their infatuation, they'll seek it outside. Instead, we should train our loved ones to meditate, to practice walking meditation, to let go, to dwell in the present, to cherish the conditions for happiness that we have. Helping our loved ones experience peace and freedom, then we are a true lover, a decent person. Love isn't just about satisfaction or possession. Love is about devotion and support. Love is about transforming our loved ones into companions on the path to the great values of freedom and true happiness. So, our responsibility to our loved ones remains, even if we've provided them with a lot of material comforts, honor, or power. We still have a responsibility to help our loved ones let go of those attachments. Because we know those attachments are temporary, lead nowhere, and don't bring true value. They create addiction and loss of autonomy. So, we still have a responsibility to help our loved ones find lasting values. They must learn to rely on themselves, not always worship us, chase after us and depend on us. As long as our children depend on us, we'll still worry a lot because they don't have autonomy over their lives. As long as our partners are still dependent on us, we'll still worry a lot because they can't stand on their own 2 feet. So, if we are truly kind, conscientious, and virtuous people, then we must help our loved ones learn to rely on themselves, to take care of themselves and heal their own wounds. That's not about escaping responsibility. We're still there. We still care. we still accompany them. But we don't jump into their lives to do everything, so they don't know what to do with their own lives. Because we've realized that no one can take responsibility for our life better than ourselves. No one can bear the pain in our body or soul better than ourselves. No matter how much the other person loves us, they only play a supporting role, just soothing, supporting, and blessing. So when we embark on the path of practice, we are embarking on the path of reclaiming sovereignty over our lives, the right to take care of our lives, the right to decide our own happiness or suffering, not the other person's. Before, we were like a screen, and the other person held the remote control. Let me make you suffer. Click, and we'd suffer immediately. Let me make you happy. Click, and we'd be happy. We became a TV channel in the other person's hands because we were dependent on them. Now we don't want that anymore. We want to be free. That doesn't mean you go home tomorrow and declare to your loved one, I want freedom. You have to sign the papers for me. It's not like that, but rather not declaring anything at all. We try to create joy for ourselves. Return to enrich the elements of relaxation, of peace, of leisure, of lightness. These are all precious assets of the soul. All these things create inner strength, inner power, strength from within. When our ego receives such wholesome nourishment, it will automatically release some of its attachment to the outside world. I know some people will fear that when that person lets go, we won't have any value anymore. What if they let go of us and grab someone else? Don't be afraid. And if that person is like that, they're not worth keeping. Because we can't always cater to someone's emotions. If they're not bored this year, they'll be bored next year. They'll get bored of us anyway. We have to guide ourselves. We're the leader. And we have to guide our loved ones towards goodness, towards a bright and beautiful path. Because we've experienced a life of mindfulness, we feel very good, we feel very happy. So we have a responsibility to help our loved ones also be like that. And when our loved ones also experience what we do, also find joy and happiness in their own practice, then the two of you become companions, become fellow travelers. And when you become fellow travelers, there's no more fear. No one can seduce or influence you anymore. Because both of you are heading towards the sun, towards the most wholesome values. And that connection will become extremely light. Because when one side has a problem, they automatically know to turn inward to solve it. They don't dump it on us. They don't wait for us. They don't bite us. They don't spew poison into us. And when we have a problem, we do the same, so that each person takes responsibility for themselves. In a relationship where each person takes responsibility for themselves, that relationship is very light and beautiful. If it's light, it gives rise to beauty. And if it's heavy, it gives rise to ugliness. So, the relationship between us and someone else, we should look back and see if it's light or heavy. If it's not light, then it's heavy. Whose fault is it? Are we still blaming him, her? Or have we begun to wake up and realize that we ourselves have contributed greatly to this heaviness? In that case, it's because we haven't been able to control our emotions. We haven't been able to control our desires, demands, and expectations. Take a minute to reflect, everyone. Thank you. Zen Master, the sixth patriarch, Huineng said something about Tanei. Not concerned with love or hate, lie down and stretch your legs straight. Stretch your legs straight and sleep. Comfortable, right? Earlier, you were all lying down, stretching your legs straight. When we can control our habits of love and hate, our lives will switch to another channel. But if you find the love and hate channel fun and interesting, then stay on that channel. But remember that you can always switch to another channel. I've lived with this channel for many years. The no love, no hate channel. I get a little annoyed sometimes, but not hateful. I also have love for my family, friends, siblings, and companions. But it's at a very relative and normal level, not entangled. So it's extremely healthy. People can think of love for a while and still live well, stable, and actually very stable. If you don't think you have the talent for love, then you should switch to another talent, the talent of not loving. If loving others isn't successful, then choose another direction, thinking of love. But if we don't have any food for the ego won't accept it. If it doesn't love this person, it will find someone else to love. If it doesn't love this way, it will love another way, because it's a natural human need. Here, we learn meditation to learn how to control the unnecessary and excessive loving emotions. We don't aspire to eliminate the ability to love completely. But if we can do that correctly and effectively, then we should. But we don't need to go that far yet. We just need to control our energy of love. Less entanglement, less attachment to objects, less waiting, less hoping for others. The word I love from the Zen master, a Tang Sang or Zen master Huineng, doesn't just refer to people, but to anything we like. So the word I here should be translated as like, or fond of, love or like something or someone. When we have an idea of liking something, our mind starts to become uneasy. So change the feeling of liking or unease. Choose one, because you rarely achieve a state of liking something while still feeling at peace, unless that liking is for nature, liking something at a moderate level without wanting to possess it. But if you like something and want to possess it, then your mind will be uneasy immediately. So when we meditate, observe our mind, we have to look at whether our mind likes something, whether we are fond of or loving someone. The first thing isn't to make ourselves not love or like, not to eliminate that mental activity. The first thing is to recognize, I know I am liking that, I am loving that person, I am feeling affection for that person. I have that in my mind. acknowledge it, and you are practicing good deeds. You are establishing mindfulness. You are bringing mindfulness into that liking. Then that a liking will be adjusted automatically. In mindfulness, there is a set of filters to see whether this liking is appropriate or not, necessary or not, toxic or benign, so that it will keep the good things for if we realize in time that we're developing a liking for something, we can also use our willpower to intervene when our mindfulness isn't strong enough and we like that object too much to an unreasonable or unlawful extent. Then at this moment, relying on mindfulness alone isn't enough. We have to use willpower, meaning we have to first use positive thinking to steer our mind in a different direction, that if we run into this object, we'll incur debt. For example, if we get caught up with this object, how can we step towards the vast horizon of wisdom and compassion? For example, to steer our mind, or we use a little willpower to restrain ourselves. Don't keep fueling that obsession. We'll separate ourselves from the space where we have contact with that person. Staying away from that person for a while will help us calm down our fondness. That's called using willpower to assist. If mindfulness isn't strong enough, however, when we use willpower, we still have to continue developing mindfulness, returning to basic meditation, practices such as walking meditation, sitting meditation, and observing the breath to re-establish or develop mindfulness. And when mindfulness is strong enough, we won't use willpower anymore, because willpower only has a temporary effect. Only mindfulness can completely burn that energy. The question is, do we want to burn that energy? Sometimes we still want to keep the energy of liking, to enjoy and feel elated. Then how can we change the situation? And it's the same with aversion and dislike. It's not that we hate someone, but we might hate certain tasks. We dislike things. We dislike certain objects, stories, situations, anything that makes us dislike and react against. As we discussed yesterday, if it's related to the roots of anger, we also have to manage that energy. Cultivation only does that. That's all. If we can stop aversion and craving, then we'll achieve enlightenment. So, each time there's craving, observe craving. Each time there's aversion, observe aversion. Like and dislike. We've always advocated that if we like something, we rush in, caress it, praise it, and then take it over, then that's the cause of suffering. If we can manage it, reduce unnecessary likes, and even necessary likes, we must let awareness accompany them. Let mindfulness accompany what we like, then it's safe. And with what we dislike, we resist. Now we shine the light of mindfulness on it, so we know that we should let go of unnecessary dislikes. It only comes from our fears, our worries, our discriminatory habits, and there's nothing dangerous about it. So we have more acceptance and don't react. And even if there are objects we have to avoid, we can't get close to, we have a dislike for that object that we haven't been able to change, then it's okay. But remember to let mindfulness accompany you every day as you practice. Mindfulness. Each time you come into contact with that object, think about that object, relate to that object. Let mindfulness go along so that we use our mindful self to treat that object. Then that dislike will gradually weaken. Then one fine day, we'll be able to accept that object. So the essence of meditation isn't observing the body, it's not observing sensations, because the body hasn't done anything wrong. Suffering doesn't come from sensations. Suffering comes from the mind. So the main task of meditation is to pay attention and observe the causes that lead to suffering, which are like and dislike, aversion and craving. But if you want to observe aversion and craving, it's not easy. If you want to confront aversion and craving without being swallowed up by them or being able to push them back, you need a great deal of strength from mindfulness. So it makes perfect sense that the Buddha advises us to practice observing the body first, then feelings, which is a bit more difficult. And then we delve into what I call the devil's cave. It's not just that. It's also the Bodhisattva's cave, a place where Buddha nature is born. That's our mind. So we must practice diligently and successfully in body contemplation. Within body contemplation, there's an exercise focused on breath. When the assembly is guided through the initial exercises in Vipassana meditation, everyone must practice observing the breath, and known as breath contemplation. This breath observation exercise is simple yet highly effective. And don't underestimate this. You don't have to wait for mind contemplation to conquer afflictions. Simply practicing breath contemplation can grant us some freedom and peace of mind. Remember, when observing your breath, the principle is that we don't interfere. No, interfere. The breath naturally flows and we let it be. It goes in, it goes out. When we focus on the rising and falling of the abdomen, it's always happening. It's just a subtle movement. So, when we meditate, it doesn't mean we force it to rise or fall according to our will or choose a different spot to connect with the breath. The inner rim of the nostrils, where air flows in and out, lightly touches a certain spot. If we're attentive, we can observe for a moment and then feel the touch of the airstream on the inner rim of the nostril at a specific point. Just focus on that point. No need to chase the breath. It has its own pace. We can't keep up, and chasing it will only disrupt the breath, leading to shortness of breath and tension. Simply be aware, this is an in-breath, this is an out-breath. Another approach is to listen to the sound of the breath entering and leaving the nostrils, creating a soft, gentle sound. Listen to that sound and use it to develop awareness. I know this is an in-breath and it feels like this. Is it smooth, labored, long, or short? The like this part is just a suggestion to help us look deeper into the breath and increase our awareness. But whatever the breath is, let it be. But we have a habit of interfering We're naturally inclined to interfere in other people's affairs, our spouses, our children's, our neighbors, even our colleagues' and bosses' affairs. We want to meddle in everything. So, not less, we've developed a habit of interference. That's why when we focus on the breath, we inevitably interfere with it to some extent. It takes a long time or great skill to reach a point where we can connect with the breath naturally. Most of the time, our breath is controlled. Controlled breathing creates tension, making us anxious and even causing difficulty in breathing. Eventually, we might not feel the breath at all. Natural breathing, on the other hand, makes us feel comfortable and relaxed. We want to stay connected to it and don't want to let go because it's such a peaceful state. So, how do we find that natural breath? Here are a few secrets. First, check if your breathing is natural or controlled. If you realize it's controlled, then stop focusing on it. Distract your mind by listening to the sound. Don't focus on your breath or on any specific part of your body or face. For example, notice your gently closed eyes, your slightly smiling lips. Don't focus on your breath. In a minute or two, we'll suddenly turn back to finding our breath in the rising and falling of our abdomen or in our nostrils. Then we can catch our natural breath, because when we sit down to meditate in such a solemn and dignified posture, our habit will automatically suggest that we control our breath. Our brain remembers our habit. Every time we sit down, we control our breath. So we follow the reminder from our brain. The second way is that you can take a few intentional breaths, creating a sound loud enough for us to hear. For example, we inhale deeply, exhale relatively strongly and slowly, so that we can hear the sound of our breath for about 3 breaths, for example, and then we don't interfere with our breath anymore, letting it flow naturally. We can still hear the slight wheezing sound of our breath in our nostrils. The third way is that besides meditating on the cushion in a space we've chosen, we practice sitting anywhere. Or even while we're standing, without doing anything too dangerous that requires too much of our attention. For example, when we walk up the stairs, we can pause for a moment before we pull the door open to go in. At that moment, we can reconnect with our breath, see where our breath is. Then, in those brief moments of stillness, when we remember our breath, we often easily connect with our natural breath. If we intentionally sit down to breathe, our breath is usually controlled. So, let's take advantage of any opportunity to sit and breathe. In fact, sitting and breathing makes it easier to connect with our breath than standing or lying down. And gradually, we'll discover our own secret how to connect with our natural breath. And when we connect with our natural breath, we really enjoy breathing. We really enjoy returning to our breath. In moments when we're overwhelmed by negative emotions, when our ego is pulling the strings, when greed, anger, and delusion are overflowing, our breath is a very safe anchor. How can every vipassana meditator practice meditation? At least in the beginning, before we can delve deeply into our ego to break it down, before we can master our greed and anger, have a special skill. Every time we feel unstable, we immediately return to our breath. But when we return, our breath accepts us right away, because we've connected with our breath every day. But if we neglect our practice, if we don't regularly connect with our breath, and we wait until something happens to return to it, then our breath will become unfamiliar to us. And then we can only control our breath. We can't find our natural breath. It's like when you learn to ride a bicycle. At first, it's very difficult to control the bicycle. We're very scared. And the more scared we are, the more difficult it is. There's a psychological barrier. We also have to fall many times, endure pain, and be a little daring. Then we'll soon master the bicycle. And over time, after riding for a few weeks, months, or years with a master of the bike, not the other way around, then we can ride the bike very fast, speeding down the road, holding on with just one hand. Some people are even pretty cool, and that includes me, letting go of the handlebars completely on some straight stretches of road. And when there's no one around, just me, I let go of the handlebars and can still ride smoothly. And at that point, we call it gaining momentum. Our legs keep pedaling, but we don't use as much effort because we've accumulated a lot of experience knowing how to lean the body, maintain the spine, and focus the eyes so the bike keeps running smoothly without using too much effort. Meditation is similar. Sometimes we will reach the momentum, the inertia of mindfulness. It's not like now, where we struggle to achieve mindfulness, falling up and down, losing mindfulness without realizing it. At some point, with diligence and consistent effort, we will also achieve the momentum of mindfulness. At that point, we don't need to put in much effort, and we still have mindfulness, and we easily detect everything that is happening in our minds, and we are capable enough to sit with each type of affliction, categorize each type of affliction to respond to, and we can even transform them in a not so difficult way. Then we have mastered our lives. Then happiness belongs to us. Then we can enter or approach the world of nirvana. Nirvana, the end of suffering, is a truth. The truth of the end of suffering. It's not a fantasy. Everyone can participate in the state of non-affliction of nirvana. It depends on the cultivation efforts of each of us. Thank you, everyone, for listening.